What's going on, Technically? My name is Billy the Skwid. Dexerto says Elden Ring multiplayer not ready following network test. Now, Technically, if you are not familiar with Dexerto, I would not blame you. They have not reached the levels of gaining journalism shitposting that the likes of Kotaku has. But Dexerto is of the same breed as Kotaku, where they will make pretty well anything to get advertiser clicks. And I'm just gonna be perfectly honest with you. I was scrolling through trying to find some stuff for Elden Ring, getting some information together for a different video in the future, and this lovely little article popped up, and I could not help but click on it, and boy am I glad I did. So Mr. Sam Smith of Dexerto has spoken for the entire Elden Ring community by saying the online community is worried that Elden Ring multiplayer is not up to the standards after playing the game's beta test. Are their concerns warranted? I don't know, Sam, are they? Let's find out. Let's keep going. Elden Ring's online beta test went live Friday, blah, 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 blah. As a Souls-style game, geez, these gaming journalisms are so out of touch that they can't even use, like, the community-created, like, phrases for these games. It's called Souls-like, you fucks. Elden Ring's multiplayer, be it PvE or co-op, is integrated into the game's main campaign. Campaign? This isn't fucking Call... I digress. Let's keep moving. He goes on to explain the very loose PvP and co-op mechanics where you can summon somebody into the world. And then he goes into the big hot topic of Elden Ring, the invasions. It's always the invasions. However, the main form of PvP in Elden Ring's multiplayer is an invasion mechanic, which works similarly to the one seen in Demon Souls, Souls with a 0, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne. And once again, if gaming journalists had any clue what they were actually talking about in these articles, it might flow a little better. If you're comparing Bloodborne's invasion mechanics to Dark Souls and Demon Souls, you are completely out of touch with FromSoftware's catalog in general, even comparing those two and how they function or perform. This allows predatory players to enter the world of another, uninvited. Then it sets about ruining their day. It's ruining their day. You can already see the bias in this. It is an integral mechanic in FromSoftware games. Invasions are a known thing, and he fails to mention that in Elden Ring, the invasions are only going to be centered around co-op unless you opt in for solo invasions. But yes, invaders are only there to ruin other players' day. That's the whole reason FromSoftware put them in there. It's to make people have a worse time playing their game. Makes sense, right? Elden Ring multiplayer repeating Dark Souls mistakes. Mistakes? That's some strong wording from somebody who I don't even think has played a Souls game. Those who have played the closed network test have now expressed their thoughts online and have concluded that the game is far from ready. Oh, really? You can read a full breakdown of fans' complaints here on Reddit. We'll get to that later. But most of it is concerned with Elden Ring's PvP multiplayer. So the whole game is far from ready because some people aren't happy with the multiplayer. Gotcha. Surprisingly, the multiplayer mechanics of earlier games have translated well, but there are issues when it comes to the actual combat. And this is where the article completely goes off the rails and proves that this guy has no clue what he's talking about. Some fans fear the infamously overpowered Backstab from the original Dark Souls has made a return, something that essentially allows players to win a fight in one well-practiced move. Players are also worried that blocking is OP, and that players can seemingly just block and backstab their way through Elden Ring's multiplayer. Oh, really? So this guy starts off this whole section saying, oh yeah, backstab's gonna be OP. Gonna be OP. Reddit told me they're gonna be OP. And then he contradicts himself in this next section by saying, in Elden Ring, any movement will make you miss the backstab, even if the movement is casting a spell while standing still. Even when you don't want to do the backstab, you will still get the grab, which leaves you vulnerable. So which one is it, bud? Are they OP, or are they going to put you into a detrimental situation? Which one is it? This essentially turns PvP battles into just two blocking players attempting to get behind each other. But you said that in the very last thing that you just said that block, like, I don't get these guys, man. In the very last section that they said, backstabs are basically broken and never go through and are more of a hindrance to you than actually a gameplay mechanic at this point. But now you're saying that all PvP battles is just people circle strafing with shields up trying to backstab each other. It could encourage players to all pursue the same build rather than engage with everything else the game has to offer. Yes, because backstabs are a build. Apparently, glitches in the game's lack of melee combos in battle may also drive players down this route in an attempt to gain an advantage. Those who opt for a different experience may feel vulnerable in PvP if they do not follow the crowd. He's basically talking about a PvP meta around shields and backstabs, which, if he actually read the article that he referenced, is farthest from the truth of what those people were talking about. The good news is fans' complaints have been constructive and measured, designed to be feedback for our development. He not only replaced an O with a 0 once, but twice, and then has a space between FromSoftware. I'm done picking on Sam here. He did an article. It got me a click. Good for you, bud. You did your job. But I would also like to go and reference the Reddit post that he was supposedly supposed to be referencing in this whole article before it went on a pancakey flip-flop back and forth on Backstabs OP or not. And what you actually get from the Reddit post is a very well-made list of issues that people were having with the PvP systems in the Elden Ring network test in a very constructive way, barring the title Elden Ring PvP is not ready for the public, and here's why. A little bit of clickbait there, but not nearly as bad as what Dexerto is doing, and this actually goes into a lot better detail than what Dexerto is doing. So I want to go through and read out the highlights and give my take on it, because you know we're better than gaming journalists up in here. Let's go. And first and foremost, the whole point of that Dexerto article was the backstabs, which they have consolidated into this nice little snippet here. And what they are basically saying is, hey, backstabs in this game are useless. They're not OP. They're garbage. And they go into details on saying how Dark Souls 1, they were abusable. Dark Souls 2 and 3 kind of refine them. And this poster in general is happy with how Dark Souls 3's backstabs function. And they're saying, in Elden Ring, there's too many checks to make sure a backstab hits. You have to be directly behind at the instance of input. You have to be directly behind when the grab goes off. And it makes it so that any movement, even putting you slightly angled off center from the back of your opponent, will make it so that the animation doesn't go through and you don't get the backstab. Going forward from that, they also say that even if you initially input the backstab and it starts going through, and then you miss, you still have to go through the entire attempt animation, which leaves you open. So if somebody's backs to you, they can just do a quick 180 and smack you while you are going through that animation. And basically, even if you're just attacking somebody normally, there's a chance that you might accidentally go into this animation, and it puts you in a disadvantage that loses you the fight. This is going to be especially important in invasion type situations where you've got a lot of targets that you're going to be focusing on. And one mistake could potentially get you stun locked to death. Yes, that is right. Elden Ring, as of right now, has infinite stun lock on multiple people hitting you. In the next section, they go through a few glitches, which is a big highlight that I've been trying to vocalize on some of the videos that I've posted about Elden Ring PvP. And they list the Dark Souls 1 glitch with the infinite stun locking ganks being a problem, which it very much is. If you get hit once, you could potentially, in a well-coordinated group, they could just chain stun you over and over, and there's no way for you to escape. Dark Souls 3 had a system in place where if you got hit consecutive times, each consecutive hit would actually make it so that your stun window was shorter, to a point where you would eventually be able to roll out no matter what. That is not in place here right now. It would be nice for them to add that. I 100% agree. And as far as backstabs go, I understand why they are trying to do it. The issue with Dark Souls 3 backstabs, even though they were pretty much perfect, is that the netcode had some issues keeping up, so there was still the slight issue with front stabbing and stuff. It was very, very much not an issue because all the checks that had to go through for a backstab to go off were still going through. It was just purely a visual. It was more a symptom of latency than an actual exploitable mechanic. You weren't getting teleport stabbed like you were in Dark Souls 2. It's just basically people about facing you. And I think that was fine. It looked a little janky sometimes, but there were so few and far between that I feel like the mechanic was fine. The issues with Elden Ring's backstab is they've put stuff in place so that those front stabs don't happen now, but now backstabs don't happen at all because there's such a narrow window for both the input, the startup, and then the finale of the backstab to actually go through. They have to be basically in the same spot, and nobody's just not going to move. This person suggested that backstab should be removed entirely if this is the system that they're going to go through with. I think having a shoulder grab mechanic and making it so that you can front stab somebody would be the better route. That way, instead of like having like the wind up and stab in, you have like a reach out. That way, as long as that reach out connects with somebody, you instantly flip them around and then stab into them. I think that would be the best way to have it look good and actually function properly. It would basically function the exact same as Dark Souls 3 does. It would just have a different startup animation that would make it look a little bit smoother. They go into a few more glitches. Estus canceling and the FAP glitch are the two big ones, but I'm sure there's a few more from Dark Souls 3 that went through. They just need to be addressed and corrected in general. There's no argument to be made for them. They go into passive armor and hyper armor and how certain mechanics are utilizing it and certain mechanics are not. With passive poise back, I think they have dialed back on hyper armor on some attacks, at least for the network test, just to see how passive poise actually affected that kind of stuff. And I do believe that there are some things that need a little bit of hyper armor added to them, or even the Dark Souls 3 nature of hyper armor where it feeds off of poise. Like you have your passive poise, and then you have your hyper armored poise, which is like a multiplier of that. I think that would be the best route to go. That way people aren't just going to freely get hyper armor from doing certain moves. I think they need to earn that hyper armor. That's something that was my biggest frustration with Dark Souls 3, was the fact that it seemed like hyper armor was just free if you were using a certain weapon class, and it made fighting those weapon classes frustrating. Maybe I was just bad at fighting them, but they're suggesting block counters get hyper armor, which I, having not played, I don't know how useful this would be one way or the other. If you don't know what a block counter is, if you block an attack with either a shield or your weapon, you can immediately counterattack, and it does like a slow but powerful counter strike. Apparently right now they do not have hyper armor, so if you are blocking with a weapon, somebody is just going to continue to R1 spam you. Whenever you go into the counter animation, you're just going to get hit out of it. If you're using a shield to block, they are going to tank off of your attack. You're going to go into the counter animation, and then they are most likely just going to run away at that point. So at this point, it doesn't really seem super functional in a PvP sense. A little hyper armor might be good, but I don't want any mechanics that are going to make turtling be the meta, because that's an extremely boring PvP meta, just everybody hiding behind shields and spamming counters because of the hyper armor. Apparently greatswords don't have hyper armor either, which I don't understand this at all. They've always had hyper armor to some extent, not as much as ultra greatswords, but I guess even two-handing a standard greatsword, there's no hyper armor to any of the attacks. It's really weird. Again, I don't know if passive poise is supposed to be the remedy for this, but as of right now, it is not functioning in that way. You're still able to get hit out of your attacks, which greatsword attacks are very slow, so that is an issue. And apparently the Lance class has hyper armor, which is weird. But yeah, something that I, being somebody who is pretty fond of the greatsword weapon class, this would be a good fix for me as well. They also go on to say that blocking is very strong, which kind of counteracts the previous argument that block counters need to be buffed. If this is what you think about blocking, having something that is also going to incentivize blocking feels a little bit weird. But they go on to say that there's not enough counters for blocking. I don't believe this is the case. I do think kicking is a little awkward right now. It's kind of going to be like parrying, where you see somebody switch to a parry tool, you know to expect it. You see somebody switch to bare fist in their left hand, you know they're probably going to try to kick you. That's how kicking works in this game. We'll see if they give a dedicated kick input. I don't think they will, but as of right now, that's how kicking works. It kind of works like a secondary parry style mechanic, at least. But as far as I know, jumping attacks do a significant amount of stamina damage, so I think that is the counter for turtling. From what I've seen, I don't know how effective it is. I also know the heavier the weapon, the more stamina damage will also effectively counter turtling in that regard as well. They say that backstabs, if backstabs are fixed, would be the perfect counter for turtling, which is what was the counter in Dark Souls 3. I agree. I think backstab would effectively fix this issue, even though I don't think it's that much of an issue as is right now. I'm also sure there's going to be plenty of weapon arts out there, or Ashes of War, whatever they're called, that are going to effectively counter blocking. I'm sure there's going to be one of those moves that like does damage around a shield. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of moves that will basically knock somebody's shield out of their way with like an uppercut or something like that. Those will exist. How good they are will all depend on how much shields are used in PvP. The last thing they say is there's a lack of true combos, which I think is fine. I thought it was kind of silly in Dark Souls 3 where if you hit one hit, you were pretty well guaranteed the second hit. This made it so that the ultra weapons were very much used, because if you hit one hit with those weapons, you could basically almost one-shot or one-shot completely somebody depending on what your build was. It was very frustrating. I think that the lack of true combos is fine. Get it hit once, and then you can dodge out of the way. Their complaint also says that the lack of true combos is fine, but they go into saying that this amount of pseudo combos you can do is very, very few and far between. Basically, if you're into fighting games, they want the option for there to be mix-ups. So you get hit once. If you dodge the wrong way, you're able to get another hit off on them. If they dodge another wrong way again, or do some other action, it allows you to basically have a 50-50 with somebody on if they do this thing and you do this thing, you get another hit. I think that is the proper way to do that. I think guaranteeing any damage is not good, which is why ganks are going to be very strong if they don't remove the infinite stun lock. But yeah, I'm going to link this Reddit post down in the information tab below. It's a very good read. Go ahead and give it the thorough read. Read some of the comments below. It's a very, very well done conversation. I think the Elden Ring community, I think y'all are going to enjoy this one if you haven't seen it already. But what do you guys think? Do you enjoy how Elden Ring performed in the network test PvP-wise? I do think PvE-wise, it is pretty well the perfect FromSoftware experience at this point, but PvP seems to be where all the contention lies. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. Also, subscribe to the channel if you want more Souls-like or Elden Ring content. We're going to be doing a lot more of that coming up, and then when Elden Ring drops, baby, we are in. But until then, much love, Tenno Crew. Bye-bye.